Hello everyone, Alejandro Sanchez here with the Racing Academy. This week we are kicking things off with a track guide for week 4 of IMSA at Long Beach Circuit, in this case with the Mercedes-AMG GT3 Evo, for which we are providing a free data pack this season, including both the race and qualifying setup, as well as the rain setup in this case. This week has a 23% chance of rain, and an endurance setup for this week as well, because it's gonna be raced at IMSA Endurance. On top of that, we are providing reference lap files, and that includes both the VLAP and OLAP files, so you can drop them into your sim and compare against my Delta, as well as a replay, so you can fully see and visualize yourself in your own machine with your own FOV, where I'm braking and where I'm turning in for certain corners. Plus, you will get access to our Discord server, which is attached in the description below, on which we are providing support for the cars that we provide data packs for. In this case, the GT3 and GTP doesn't have to be only the Mercedes-AMG GT3. And yeah, you can just type in those chats and the coaches will get back to you as soon as possible for any questions you may have. Now, let's break down the circuit. Long Beach, not the best track for multiclass, I'm afraid. The Mercedes is actually a good choice for this week, given the high humidity that we are going to experience. Feels really good on this very slippery track. It's only improved by the Porsche, which is a little bit faster, but I think the Mercedes is quite a good race car. It's probably lacking a bit in Q, so you gotta keep that in mind. And qualifying is very important on this track, because all you have to do is qualify and stay up front, stay out of trouble, be careful with the GTPs and LMP2s lapping you every lap. And yeah, just try to keep it clear of the walls, which is sometimes hard to do with this car. It tends to bottom out a bit on the hard kept strikes, and yeah, proves a little bit difficult to handle in those type of situations. I think the Porsche is a bit nicer to drive in that scenario, but yeah, not the worst car's choice. So yeah, without further ado, let's dive in. You can grab this season's Mercedes-AMG GT3 Evo data pack for IMSA for free by clicking the link in the description below, or by going over at apexracingac.com. Let's dive into the lap. For T1, you just want to stay as close as possible through the entire pit lane wall in this case, and just hold it tight throughout the entire thing to do less meters. And as soon as you reach this point where the corner ends, you just gotta let the car track wide all the way to the middle of the track. Just like this. Use this discontinuous line as a reference, the second one to the left, just so you can break in as much of a straight line for the actual T1, rather than the start-finish line straight, which is a corner at the same time. It's a bit confusing, I know, but we'll just call this one T1. So what I look at usually for starting to brake is this white line ending just between the red and the double blue line on the right, and I just try to put as much of the car as possible over the red line without it giving a slowdown. I think the middle of the car is the limit through there, and yeah, just dropping it to second gear, braking super hard around 90%, and turning off the brakes up until this point where I'm picking up the throttle quite hard, as you can see, in order to be able to hit this inside curve as hard as possible. In this case, yeah, you can see how I'm putting half of the car over the curve, and that's just enough. Any more than that, the car's gonna jump too much and it's gonna be counterproductive. Then on the exit, be careful with the outside wall obviously, but you want to get as close as possible to it. Keep it in second, you don't really need to shift to third, and then as soon as the car reaches this yellow line dividing the track in two, I usually start to brake. The time here is found just getting as close as possible to the walls, both on the entry and on the exit. So for this one, we are gonna brake as close as possible to here. We are opening up the line even a little bit, turning to the left, in preparation for the 14 corner. Yeah, where we are just putting as much of the car on the inside as possible. I'm not quite getting on the inside curve here. That's around sort of the fountain, but I'm getting pretty close to it, just so I can get a straight off an exit as possible. And yeah, then on the exit, keep it in first gear, careful with the wheel spin. Just keep it as tight as possible to this inside wall. As I said, that's where the time is found. Then keep it in second for sector 2. I'm starting to brake roughly where these banners on the left side wall begin. And yeah, trailing off the brakes up until this point, same story as on T1, hitting the throttle before you actually hit the curve. And then careful, because it's quite easy to lose the rear end through here and just crash into this outside wall, but you want to carry as much minimum speed as possible for this one. And then one of the trickiest corners on the track, you can see how there's like 2 stages to the asphalt. There's a darker stage and then there's a lighter stage. As soon as this darker stage ends, that's usually when I start to brake and start to turn in as soon as you reach these K1 speed banners on the left. Now for this one, you want to put the left side tires to the right side of the thicker part of the curve. So just like this, you want to drive in between the curves basically, because that's the only way you are not gonna bottom out. It's quite easy to get a slowdown through here, so be careful with that, but this is how much you need to cut, because otherwise the car is just gonna keep bottoming out. And this is what I mentioned on the intro as well, about the car being really sensitive to bottoming out compared to others like the Porsche. So yeah, keep that in mind. Take it easy on the entry is a very, very important thing. Just keep it easy on the entry and maintain your line. You should be golden. And then on the exit, just be careful with the exit oversteer, obviously, that you're gonna get, and just try to get as close as possible to the outside wall. Back to the right side of the track for sector 3. Usually looking at the 200 sign for starting to brake. And yeah, braking quite hard, as you can see. Holding it to roughly around 80%. Dropping it to second gear, opening up the line as much as possible, as close as possible to this outside wall. And then as close as possible to this inside wall. Getting very comfortable with the walls. But yeah, not driving quite into them. And you gotta be patient on throttle here, because as you see, it's very, very bumpy, so it's quite hard to put the power down. And you also don't want to go too wide, because then you have to come back to the left side of the track in preparation for the next right-hander. And you end up just tripping over yourself, because you don't have as much space as you will need in order to be able to fully utilize the width of this track, of this part of the track in this case. So usually what I'm trying to do is I'm just trying to put the left side tires as close as possible to the edge of the red line here, and that's usually a good visual reference of where you need to put the car. And then as soon as possible you need to go back to the left side of the track in preparation for this very tight left right-hander, where it's really easy to crash into the inside wall. Yeah, for this one, just open up the line as close as possible to the wall, which is the rule for this track essentially, and brake at the 200 sign. Second gear. Quite a late downshift, if you see there, in order to not upset the car too much, and holding the brakes to around 60%. Right up until this point, where I'm picking up the throttle quite early as well, in order to carry as much exit speed through the back straight. For this one, getting as close as possible to this inside wall. And then on the exit, it's gonna start to turn in at the last moment, but as you can see here, it's gonna turn in. It's very important you put the left side tires as close as possible to the wall, because it's less bumpy actually between the red line and the wall than it is in the middle of the track. So you need to fully commit to it and to fully push it in order to extract the maximum lap time from this sector. And then onto the last sector, driving as close as possible to this outside wall, really, on the left. And usually looking at between the 400 and the 300 for starting to brake. Braking more towards the 400, but slow to threshold as always. My visual target is set on the 300 marker, sorry. So yeah, quite hard on the brakes, 90% roughly, and start to turn in a little bit right when the track widens here on the left. You need to use this extra room that you're given, and then start to turn in as soon as you reach the last part of the widening basically. So second gear, quite late. Try to put the right side tires beyond the curve and into the asphalt on the inside, on the right side here, just like this. Just trying to cut as much as possible. It's the most important thing around here. Yeah, just being careful with the outside understeer that you're gonna get, getting as close as possible to these Acura banners on the left, and then moving back into the right side a little bit, not too much. You don't really want to sacrifice the entry in order to get a good middle corner, because it's all about the line here. It's just trying to keep it as tight as possible, and that's where all the grip is for this sector. Barely driving over these inside curves and barely tapping the brakes, just trying to keep it as stable as possible, because it's quite easy to get loose. And then on the throttle quite smoothly, then using this inside part of the curve in order to help us rotate it, and then yeah, braking basically as soon as we touch them, and trying to brake in as much of a straight line for the last phase of the preparation for the hairpin. So just like this, hold it to around 60%, keep it in first gear, full lock actually, right at the hairpin, trying to get as close as possible to this inside wall. But yeah, it's quite easy to crash into it, so be careful with that. And then putting the car as straight as possible on the exit. Now this is another part of the track where it's really important to get really close to this outside wall, because it's less bumpy. It's the same as on sector 3, where the closer you get to the wall, the less bumps there is. So yeah, and onto the start finish line. In order to do less meters, just try to keep it as tight as possible, because that way you are holding it tighter, and yeah, basically free lap time. So yeah, that's it. Don't forget to head over to apexracingac.com or by clicking the link in the description below. Also don't forget to join the Discord server, where we are providing support for every car, not just the Mercedes-AMG GT3 Evo, as well as the coaching sessions that we host on Wednesday evenings for IMSA, where a coach is gonna sit with you for anything between an hour and 2 hours. And yeah, you can just ask him in voice chat whatever questions you have, and he can watch you drive in real time. So it's like a massive deal, because you basically get a coaching session for free. So yeah, take full advantage of that, and see you next one.